Okay, welcome to the phylum Platyhelminthes video. These animals are small, flat, nice evolutionary steps up in complexity from the cnidarians, and you'll see why as we go through this. Platy means flat. Helminth is a word for worm. And let's have a look at some of their characteristics. The polycladids are the marine version of flatworms. There are flatworms in many environments, but the marine ones tend to be the very colorful ones and the largest. They'll grow up to 15 centimeters. Most are very small, though, very, very small. And you'll tend to see them like this. You can see the background, and you can see the size of the material that this thing is photographed next to. They tend to be something that you'll see they're turning over a rock and ghosting away from the light, or out at night, scavenging, foraging, whatever they may be doing. But you notice that they're very flat, but also can be incredibly beautiful colorations. Generally, they are unsegmented. So if you see a segmented worm, you'll know that it's probably an annelid rather than a Platyhelminthes. They have no circulatory system, which is why they're very flat. Okay, so the only way that they can get oxygen into the interior cells of their body is by diffusion, and all the waste's out. So in order to be able to get enough oxygen into the central cells, and they have to rely on diffusion, which is not a very fast system, and so they haven't developed a circulatory system, so that limits the size, the width of their body. And I recommend you go to the YouTube video that I've got there to learn about diffusion, or just type in diffusion in the search box and learn a little bit about that. It's a very important biological concept. They have an incomplete gut. Okay, we'll have a look at that in a minute, but that means that they don't have a separate mouth and anus. They are cephalized, okay, which is a collection of the sensory organs towards one side of the body, and they have a nervous system which is a little more complex than the nervous net, and they're hermaphrodites. So there's your general list of characteristics. Okay, so considering that what we've just said, let's have a look at a little closer look. All right, so cephalization is the grouping or collection of all of the sensory capabilities towards one side of the body, and that includes the sensory lobes, includes the eye spots, which are actually just patches of light sensitive skin rather than actual eyes like we know. They have a brain for organizing that all that information, and they have much like if you think about our own heads, we've got the sense of hearing, the sense of taste, the sense of smell, the sense of vision, all grouped in one side of the body. And when you have cephalization, it implies directional movement. Okay, so you can go towards something that is smelling good. You can smell your way towards a particular smell of food, or the sight if you're a sight hunter. And in order to organize all of that, then you start to get more than just a neural net. You get you have to have a more sophisticated brain with nerves that run down the length of the body, and so you have two paired ventrolateral nerves, and they have little cross nerves that go across, and so you've got a lot more organization of movement than in the cnidarians, as we've seen before. They have an incomplete gut, let's move on to the next slide. Incomplete gut. So number one here, this is their gut or intestine or stomach. All right. So the food comes in. It's highly branched, which allows for much more surface area for digestion to happen quicker. Okay. But what happens with this incomplete gut is that food goes in one in this pharynx here. Number two, the pharynx. Okay, pharynx is a muscular tube for grinding food and passing it into the gut. The mouth here is number three. So food goes in, and they can only eat as much as they can pack into their gut. Then they have to wait to digest it, and then the waste comes back out through the same opening. So that is called a two-way gut. The food goes in and out. The waste come out through the same opening. So there's your digestive system, and they also have the nervous system here going down the length of the body. In terms of feeding, they can be carnivores, they can be predators, they can be scavengers, they can be parasites. So these things do all sorts of different consuming. Really, any way that they can gather food up, they will. Now, different species, of course, will be specialized for different types of feeding methods, but flatworms are known to do all of these. They're pretty amazing in terms of their ability to regenerate. So they breed either through copulation, and that's something called penis fencing, where they compete to see which one can impregnate the other with sperm. And there's a nice video on Moodle showing that. And then they also asexually can reproduce through transverse fission, which is splitting in two down the length of the body, or through fragmentation. And what you see on the right hand side is somebody is actually in a lab has actually split this animal right down the center, but not for the length of it, but both sides are growing ahead, and this thing will eventually just continue to split down the middle and split into two new planarians. All right, let's have a review from the Greek words platy for flat and helminthes for worm. There you go. Okay, flatworms. They're bilaterally symmetrical. And we're bilaterally symmetrical as well. So you can see it's split down the center. And yes, we've got the heart centered a little bit more this way. Appendix over here. But for the most part, if you, superficially at least, if you split us down the middle, we're going to look exactly the same on opposite sides. Same with the Platyhelminthes. Okay, they have three layers of tissues with organs, which is a step up from the mesoglia of the cnidarians. Okay, so now you have your epiderm, okay, or ectoderm here, your mesoderm in the center, which is now living material, and endoderm in the very middle. Okay, so we've just added another living layer, which is the mesoderm, and now we can grow organs. They have a two-way gut, nervous system rather than nervous net, dorsoventrally flattened, dorsoventrally, so that means from top to bottom, as opposed to laterally flattened, which would be like a sandhopper where it's thin from side to side. Okay, mostly hermaphrodites and mostly sexual reproduction. Okay, and they occur in almost all habitats on the planet.